Good evening. Sorry for the little delay there. Good evening to you all. So this evening, we're going to be taking a look at the evidence given in court by the mother of child E and F. Now, we covered this last night in the members live stream, the private stream, but I haven't actually got the video on the computer to be able to put it up publicly. So what I'm going to do is cover it again and also cover the father's evidence that he gave in court on that same day. So we're going to cover both the mother's and the father's evidence in this particular episode. I am late. Yes, I am late. I've got a terrible headache. I'm running late, so I'm doing my best. Oh dear. Welcome, Finzi. Welcome to you. Silver Fox, welcome. Terence the Stamper, thank you for joining us. And yeah, as I say, last night I felt went particularly well with the members live stream. So thank you to everybody who attended last night. It was great to see a good turnout for that particular live stream. And then tomorrow, what we're going to do is move forward to the case of child F. So that will be tomorrow night. But for this evening, we'll focus on the mother's evidence, the mother of child E and F. Now, this particular case regarding child E, as I covered in a previous live stream, what a large amount of this revolves around is whether you believe Lucy Letby and her timings as to what happened on that night, or the mother of child E. So you need to keep that in mind as we go forward with this particular evidence. Let's just say hello to a few more of you before we get started. Beautifully Fractured, welcome to you. Scott Martin, welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. Lenny the Legend Russell is in the house. Welcome to you. Misbehave. Welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Susie M, Alora Mac, welcome to you. Oh yeah, and don't forget to hit the like button. Always forget that. Let's see if I've forgotten anybody else before we start. And as I say, I've got a terrible headache, but we're going to do our best. We'll try and get through this in one piece, hopefully. And yeah, like I say, we'll go through this. I think it's 40 pages for the mother's evidence, and then the father's evidence is a lot shorter. It's probably only about, let's just have a quick look here. The father's evidence is just 4 pages. So should have about 50 pages to get through in total, I would have thought. Right, okay. As I say, thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's greatly appreciated as always. What we're going to cover tonight are the official transcripts from Lucy Letby's original trial, purchased by myself and the channel. And if you wish to support the channel and the work that I do, you can find out how to do that down in the video description box below. All help is greatly appreciated. Right, okay, let's get started. Let's get started. Alora Mac, oh no, hope your headache gets better soon. Yeah, I'm sure it will. I've taken some tablets, so I'm sure I'll be fine. We'll see how we go. Right. I'll give you a shout out in a second, Alora. I'm going to start with this. And as I say, this is quite difficult to cover, this one. As I say, I covered it last night for the first time. I haven't read this in any detail until I covered it last night. So there are points in this particular evidence that you may find even more upsetting than what we've covered thus far. So do keep that in mind as we go forward. Okay, so again, this is the evidence given in court by the mother of babies E and F. So this is the examination in chief by Mr. Johnson. It's quite a big room and you have quite a soft voice. So if you wouldn't mind, please, it's a slightly artificial exercise, but the questions, generally speaking, come from this direction. If you could try to give your answers to the jury, and it may help if you look at the jury when you speak, if you don't mind. Thank you. So imagining that you're shouting at your kids, can you tell the jury what your name is, please? And obviously it's redacted. So the mother of child E and F. Thank you, the mother of child E and F. On the 29th of July, 2015, did you give birth to identical twin sons, child E and child F? She replies, yes. Was that at the Countess of Chester Hospital? Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm not asking you to tell us your address, but did you live in that general area? She replies, no. Where had you expected to be giving birth? She replies, the Liverpool Women's Hospital. Nicholas Johnson, but for capacity reasons, were you taken to Chester? She replies, yes. Can you remember now how far your pregnancy was advanced when you gave birth on the 29th of July? She replies, 29 weeks and 5 days. Nicholas Johnson, when you gave birth, what was the impression that you had of the state of health of your twin sons? She replies, I thought they were in good condition for the gestation. Was child E born first? Yes. And followed about a minute later by child F? She replies, yes. How long was it before you had physical contact with your boys after giving birth? She replies, I got to go to the neonatal unit at around 11:20 in the evening after having them just before 6 o'clock in the evening. Nicholas Johnson, were you able, given your condition and their condition, to spend a lot of time with them at that stage? She replies, no, just a few minutes. So that was the 29th of July, which was a Wednesday. Did you stay in hospital yourself for quite a period of time after the lads had been born? She replies, yes. The following day, Thursday the 30th of July, were you able to visit the boys? She replies, yes. Nicholas Johnson, and how far away from the neonatal unit were you being accommodated? She replies, I was upstairs in the postnatal ward. I'm unsure of how far away that is, but it was in a lift. Yes, perhaps in time. How long, generally speaking, would it take you to get from the postnatal ward down or along or up to the neonatal ward? She replies, I had a section, so it took me probably a little bit longer than what it would probably take normally. So probably about 5-10 minutes. Okay. Were you able to cuddle your boys on the 30th of July? She replies, child E. Was there any reason why you were able to cuddle child E and not cuddle child F? She replies, child E wasn't on his CPAP, so he didn't have all the wires that child F did. Okay. Now, the 30th of July, which was the Thursday, so the lad's first full day, so to speak, had you made a decision about how you wanted your sons to be fed? She replies, yes. And what was your decision, please? She replies, I wanted them to have my breast milk. Nicholas Johnson, what steps had you decided to take in order for them to get what you wanted them to get in terms of their feed? Were you providing breast milk yourself? She replies, yes. And were you helped by the nurses to express that so that it would be provided to them? She replies, yes. Nicholas Johnson, whilst that regime was establishing itself, had you agreed for them to have donor milk? She replies, yes. But in due course, did you manage to establish a regime whereby you were able to provide your own milk for the lads? She replied, yes, that was very important to me. On the 31st of July, which was the Friday, did you produce milk for your sons and drop it off at the neonatal unit? She replies, yes. As you were thinking then, how did providing your milk for your sons feature in a list of important things for you to do? She replies, it was the only thing that I could do for them at that point. I had to do it. It was non-negotiable for me. Yes. Were you getting help and support from the nursing staff to achieve what it was you were seeking to achieve? She replies, yes. So taking those 2 days then, that is the Thursday the 30th and Friday the 31st of July, in general terms, excuse me. In general terms, how are the lads progressing? She replies, really well. 2 seconds, guys. Just clear my throat. There we go. Nicholas Johnson, as it appeared to you on just those 2 days, who was doing the better of child E and child F? Sorry? Mr. Johnson then says, which of the lads was doing better at that stage? She replies, oh, child E. By Saturday the 1st of August, how are the boys progressing? She replies, really well. You were a distance from home in Chester? Yes. Were you keen to get back home or closer to home at least? She replies, absolutely. What were you waiting for so far as getting back towards home was concerned? She replies, transport to be able to take both boys. So rather than being able to transport one baby, we needed 2 ambulances to take them and for those to be available for neonatal babies. Nicholas Johnson, as you understood it, was there any, other than physically getting 2 ambulances with the required facilities to carry out the transfer, so far as the health of the lads was concerned, did you understand that there was anything blocking them moving other than just getting the transport? She replies, no, we were informed by staff on the unit that We actually asked if we would like to move closer to home, to our local hospital. So at that point, I was under the impression that both my boys were well enough to travel. Nicholas Johnson. Had you any, by the 1st of August, which was the Saturday, I beg your pardon, had you had skin-to-skin contact with them? She replies, yes. And how were your sons managing in terms of the skin-to-skin contact? They were managing fine. We were never informed that there was anything to say that they weren't managing fine. So that's the 1st of August, the Saturday. Moving on to the 2nd of August, the Sunday. Were you still waiting for transport? She replies, yes. Were the boys always in their incubators on the Sunday, or were they coming out of the incubators? She replies, from memory, I think, well, yeah, they were out of the incubators. Yes, they were out of the incubators, both of them. Nicholas Johnson. Just concentrating on child E first for a second. How was he breathing out of the incubator? She replies, beautifully. And child F? She replies, great. I will stop there for a second. Just have a sip of the old green tea. Thank you very much, Laura Mack, for the £4.99 super sticker. Greatly appreciated, as always. I think I can hear some kids outside playing in the snow, but because I've got my earphones in with noise cancellation, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know whether you can hear it through the microphone or not. Let me just take my headphones off. 2 seconds. No, I can't hear it now, so it should be fine. Right, okay. No, sadly not. I've been hoping for snow literally all day. And what do we get? You know, we're looking out the window. Where's the snow? Where's the snow? We get sleet. We get a bit of rain so that nothing won't stick. And then we get a hell of a lot of sleet. Fantastic. Fantastic. Literally the worst of all possibilities. So, yeah, terrible. A Cornish lass, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us this evening. JC, welcome. And like I say, this isn't the easiest of transcripts to narrate, but I feel it's important that as there has been misinformation put out there regarding the timing of this situation, I'm not going to go into too much details about that, but I think it's important that the facts of the parents' evidence are made public and that people understand at least the parents' perspective or the parents' evidence as it was said in court. Let's have a look here. Sit and spin. Have some of that. It's like Silent Hill where I live right now. I can't really see what it's like because it's literally pitch black, but I was hoping for at least some snow, you know, but nothing. Just horrible sleet. Awful. Right, okay. Right, let's continue onward, shall we? I don't think I've missed out anything else. Thanks again for that $4.99, Laura. Much appreciated. Right, let's get cracking with the next part. Okay. Okay, so the judge, Mr. Justice Goss, says, sorry, you dropped your voice there. The mother says, sorry, Mr. Johnson. Do you remember an occasion when you were told that there was a potential issue over the production of insulin, the blood sugars of the boys? She replies, I don't remember a specific conversation, but I do recall that being mentioned, that neonatal babies struggle to maintain levels of insulin. That was totally normal. 3rd of August, how were the boys doing by Monday the 3rd of August? She replies, great, they were doing really well. Child F had come off his CPAP and had gone on to Optiflow, and we were absolutely thrilled that both boys were doing so well. And yeah, we couldn't have asked for any more than that. They were both progressing. What about Child E? How's he doing on Monday the 3rd during the day? She replies, Child E was always thriving. You've already told us that you were an inpatient yourself at the Countess. Was your husband staying over, or was he commuting to and from the hospital? She replies, no, he was commuting to and from the hospital. Without giving away too much detail geographically, was your home at the time in effect on the other side of Liverpool from Chester? She replies, over an hour away. Okay. Did there come a stage on Monday when your husband, the father of child E and F, went home? She replies, yes. Did he have any, as far as you were concerned, Had he gone home for a specific reason? To do anything in anticipation of anything? She replies, yes, he had gone home to prepare the house because he'd been there for a while. I was in hospital, and he was going home to tidy up and get prepared for me coming home because we believed that was imminent, that the boys were getting transferred to a local hospital, which would mean I would be sleeping at home. Can you remember approximately the time of day on Monday the 3rd when your husband, the father of child E and F, left the hospital to go home? She replies, yes, it was about 5 o'clock. Is that in the afternoon? In the afternoon. Can you remember what you were doing when the father of child E and F left you in hospital? She replies, I was having skin to skin with child E. Can you remember the time when your direct contact with child E ended on Monday the 3rd of August? She replies, so you mean that skin to skin contact? Mr. Johnson, yes. What time did that finish? She replies, about 6:30ish. Did you do anything else for your son before you left him in the care of the nursing staff? She replies, yes. I changed his nappy and done all of his, what they call cares. So that was cleaning him, cleaning under his neck, cleaning his eyes, and things like that. Nicholas Johnson, what sort of state were you in by this stage, by the 3rd? Did you feel you'd fully recovered, or were you still tired? She replies, I was still sensitive and sore and fragile, but I was just over the moon. I was absolutely over the moon. My 2 boys were perfect. Nicholas Johnson, and were you still managing to provide milk for them to be fed? She replies, yes. So you left the lads in the neonatal unit, and where did you go from the neonatal unit? She replies, I went up to the postnatal ward. What did you need to do when you got to the postnatal ward? She replies, express milk and have something to eat. Can you remember roughly what time it was that you carried out those 2 tasks? She replies, it would have been between 7 and about 8:30. I can't give an exact. No, I don't think anyone would expect you to be exact, but that's the time as you remember it. Now, having expressed the milk for your sons and having had your own food, what did you decide to do? She replies, what I did every time I expressed milk, I took it straight down to the neonatal unit, even if it was in the night. So every 2 to 3 hours, I would express and I would take it to the unit. What time was it when you arrived at the unit with the milk? She replies, a touch before 9 o'clock. I just want to deal with the layout in the unit, all right? I think you drew a plan for the police. Do you remember drawing that plan? By your facial expression, you don't look too impressed with your own plan. She replies, it wasn't my finest hour. I'm sure we all understand. I wonder whether we could see the plan on the screen, please. This is one of the plans. I'm not going to comment on how good, bad, or indifferent it is, but for the sake of the record, it's J2424. Is that all written by you? She replies, the bit down the side. So the bit down the right-hand side is written by you. She replies, no, it's not written by me. And that isn't written by me. Nicholas Johnson, so are those the bits that aren't written by you? And then it says inaudible. And the bit along the top, high dependency children? Do you know whose writing that is? She replies, I think that's my family liaison. I'm unsure. You're just going to have to keep your voice up a bit. I think that's the family liaison's writing. Nicholas Johnson, so the police officer that was speaking to you? She replies, yes. Nicholas Johnson, okay. Were you describing what? Then she said, I struggled. Okay, I'm not very visual of things like that. So I can see it in my own mind, but I couldn't put it on. I physically couldn't put it onto the paper. And he was just telling me to do my best. And then he added some of the writing in. Okay, as you were describing it, she replies, as I described it at my request. Okay, so you were directing what was written and where it was written. She replies, yes. Okay, I understand. Well, we can see just at the top where it says high dependency children, there is what looks like a pretty much a square box. And within the square box, there are 2 rectangular boxes. One has the name child E and the other has child F against it. If we enlarge that a bit more, please, Mr. Murphy. Then Mr. Justice Goss jumps in and says, I think what it says is turning sideways, room 1, and then 2 rectangles, one having child F against it and one having child E against it. Is that right? Mr. Johnson, yes. Is that how you remembered it? She replies, yes. Okay, so the lads were together in a room. The room as you remember it was room number 1. Is that right? She replies, yes. Were they both in incubators? She replies, they were, on the 3rd of August. Can you remember now whether there were any other children in the room? Any other babies in the room? She replies, I don't think there was, but I can't remember. Okay, let's go back to that night then, please. If you could just remove that from the screen. You had gone down with the purpose of delivering the milk for the boys. Did you go into room 1? She replies, yes. Other than your children, was anyone else in room number 1? She replies, yes. Who else was in room number 1? She replies, Lucy Letby. Right. Were any other adults in the room? No. What could you see or hear when you walked into the room? She replies, I could hear my son crying, and it was like nothing I'd heard before. I walked over to the incubator to see he had blood coming out of his mouth, and I panicked. I was panicking because I felt like there was something wrong. Okay, just want to get a bit more detail from you, all right? We all realise it's very difficult for you to give this detail. But first of all, which of your sons are you talking about? She replies, Child E. Was Lucy Letby near Child E when you walked in? She replies, no, she was in between Child E's incubator. There was a workstation, and she was at the workstation at the side of, yes, she was at the workstation. Okay, I'll just try and help you with what I'll show you, if Mr. Murphy can help me, is a video of the room. Are you all right watching that? Witness nods. Nicholas Johnson. There are no children in the room, okay? I don't know whether Mr. Murphy, you could help by locating the video for me. This is the shakier of the videos, if I can put it that way. If you need to watch this more than once, the mother of child E and F, you tell us, all right? Let's go have a break there for 2 seconds. Another sip of my tea. Excuse me. Right. Who else have we got here that I haven't seen this evening? Patricia Burns, welcome to you. Thank you for joining us this evening. David Zimmerman, thank you for joining us. This is interviews with the children's parents. No, this is their appearance in court. So this is them giving evidence during Lucy Letby's actual trial. So it's their evidence in chief, and then, excuse me, and then they're cross-examined afterwards by Benjamin Myers. So we're going to go through both of that, basically. Rachel Barker with the £4.99 super sticker. Much appreciated. Thank you very much, Rachel. Okay, let's just catch up here with some of the chat before we continue. Right, okay. Oh, hang on a second. Lindsay H with the £5. Thank you very much, Lindsay. That is greatly appreciated as always. Thank you so much for your continued support. Miss Rattle, welcome to you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Vanessa, welcome to you. Right, okay, let's continue onwards. And as I say, once this is finished, if you haven't seen this, if you're just tuning in now, you will get the full video that will be released after the live concludes, basically. So once it's finished, once this live stream is finished, you'll get the whole video, which will be released in probably 10 or 15 minutes or so after the stream ends. So do not despair. Okay, let's get further forward, shall we? Okay, so, oh, hang on a minute. I always do this, don't I? Right, okay, so they're playing the video in court. Nicholas Johnson, can we just stop it there, please? What we've just seen there, the mother of child E and F, it's two separate entrances into the room, into the same room. The room is partially divided by a wall, which is the wall we can see to the right of the screen at the moment, which is between the two doors, okay? We can see the positions of 4 incubators within the room. Looking at the video, can you remember which of those 2 incubators your sons were in? She replies, yes. Which of the incubators? She replies, the ones immediately on the other side from the wall we're looking at now. She replies, yes. So The view one gets when the camera operator goes through the first door, those two incubators, one on the right and one straight ahead, in effect. So those two. She replies, yes. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. That's just for the record, at 0109 on that video. The workstation that you were speaking of where Lucy Letby was, where is that? Is that shown on the video? She replies, she was round here, indicating. So you're indicating to the right-hand side of the screen as we're looking at that still there. She replies, yes. Okay, was Lucy Letby sitting or standing? No, standing. She was standing. And just to help us, which of the two incubators was which of your lads in? She replies, child E and child F. Nicholas Johnson, child E in the one to the right as we're looking at the picture, and child F up towards the left of the picture, okay? Did you come through the door that the camera operator is standing in as we look at that still? Rather than nodding your head, would you mind? Sorry, yes. Lots of witnesses do it, all right? Just nod if you wouldn't mind, verbalize, and you wouldn't mind verbalizing the answer, thank you. Just describe again for us what you could hear, please, the mother of child E and F. Crying, like, what sort of cry? What sort of a cry? She replies, it was a sound that shouldn't have come from a tiny baby. I can't explain what that sound was. It was horrendous, more of a scream than a cry. And how long before you walked into the room could you hear that? Can you remember? She replies, I could hear it in the little corridor. When you say the little corridor, is that the corridor? She replies, the main corridor, the corridor within the unit itself. Did you come through the door that we can see the picture of on the screen? She replies, yes. And then Mr. Justice Goss then jumps in and says, we can't actually see the door. Through that door where the cameraman is, Mr. Johnson. Yes, there's the door. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Justice Goss, is that what you mean, the mother of child E and F? She replies, yes. So as we know from the corridor, that's the right-hand door if you're in the corridor. Mr. Johnson, yes, thank you, my lord. And just to be entirely clear, what was Lucy Letby doing as you walked in, hearing what you could hear? She replies, she was busy doing something, but she wasn't near child E. And what did you do? I immediately went to child E, and because when the boys were born, we were told to use a containment technique, which is putting your hand on the baby's head and on the tummy to make them feel like they're still in your tummy. Yes. So I tried doing that. That's meant to make them feel calm and comforted. I tried doing that, and it didn't work. So did child E continue to make the same noise? She replies, yes. Doing your best, how long did he continue to make that noise? She replies, he was still making that when I left. Nicholas Johnson. Let's just try and define the period that you were there from arriving to leaving, and then we'll fill in what happened during that time. Approximately how long were you in the unit, in that room with your lads? She replies, about 10 minutes. Right. When you did this containment technique with child E, with your hands, was there anything unusual that you could see on or about child E? She replies, yes, there was blood on his face, round his mouth. Can you remember now? Were you asked by the police to draw on a pre-drawn picture of a baby's face? Yes. To indicate where the blood was? She replies, yes. If we could go to that, please, Mr. Murphy. It's page 27 of the bundle I gave you. This, my lord, for the record, is CLG/9, which is J2434. Is this the diagram that you annotated, the mother of child E and F? She replies, yes. I'm sure it's perfectly obvious to everybody, but can you just describe the alteration that you have made to the plan? She replies, round the mouth. So describing it in a rather inelegant way, it's almost like a goatee beard. She replies, yes. Mr. Justice Goss. Sorry, for the sake of clarity, it's difficult to see. Was it above the top lip? She replies, not really. A little bit, but not as much as on the bottom. Mr. Justice Goss, that's better. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Johnson. So you shaded him almost like a pencil moustache. That's the way it looks. And below the bottom lip and just above the point of the chin, that area between. Have you put shading? Is that right? You have put the shading. You have put shading. Is that right? She replies, yes. Okay. What you saw was blood. Is that right? Yes. Did you ask Lucy Letby about what it was you could see? She replies, yes. What did you say to her? She replies, I asked why he was bleeding and what was wrong. Did she give you a response? Yes. What did she say? She said the feed tube from the back of his throat will have been rubbing, and that will have caused the blood. Did you accept that explanation? Yes. Were you concerned about that explanation? Yes. Did Lucy Letby say anything else to you? She told me to go back to the ward. Did you do what you were told by her? Yes. Why did you do what you were told by her? Because she was in authority and she knew better than me, and I trusted her completely. Did she say what she would do about the problem? She replies, she said the registrar was on his way, and if there was a problem, someone would ring up to the postnatal ward. And did you accept that explanation? Yes. Did you return to the postnatal ward? Yes. Did you do anything when you got back to the postnatal ward? I rang my husband. Any particular reason why you rang your husband? She replies, I knew there was something very wrong. I was frightened. I didn't take my phone downstairs and I needed to speak to him. I needed to tell him. Okay, let's deal with. Did there come a stage much later in the process when you were trying to put together the sequence of events? She replies, yes. And when you were doing that, do you remember what you've just told us? That you went back to the postnatal ward and you made this telephone call? Yes. All right. Did you get a printed version of your telephone records? I did. And did you identify from the telephone records the call that you made when you returned to the postnatal ward? I did. With the help of Mr. Murphy again, please. It's page 8 of the documents. This is for the jury's information. Will appear in the sequence of events as well when we go through the sequence. It's J2431. This is an edited version of your phone records. The mother of child E and F. Okay, so we're not telling the world at large what people's telephone numbers are or were at the time. Is that you're writing on the telephone record? Yes. I can read it perfectly well, but just for the sake of the record, is there a number 1 at the top which has been partially obscured by the way the document has been copied? Yes. And have you written on it, when I called the father of child E and F to tell him there was something wrong? Yes. Okay. Is there then a number 1 to the right of that manuscript? Yes. There then an asterisk, a star? Yes. What's the time of the call to the father of child E and F to tell him there was something wrong? 21:21. Sorry, 21:11. 21:11. So if we highlight that, can we see that that was a call that lasted 4 minutes and 25 seconds? Yes. And that number ending, is it 5808 or 5800? She replies 5800. Right, I'll stop there for a second. Oh dear. Blimey, what's going on here? What have I missed? Lucy Blue with the £1.99 super sticker. Thank you so much for your support and your continual viewing. Much appreciated. Michelle sneaking in there with the £2 super sticker. Thank you so much, Michelle. As always, much appreciated. Silver Fox with the £9.99. Thank you, Silver Fox. As always, all help is greatly appreciated. Very much appreciated. I can't believe I'm getting through this quite well. Actually, a little bit better than I did yesterday. I guess it's probably because I've already read it once, but it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, what I can't understand is why you now have an individual who has created a podcast on this case, and they have tried to muddy the water by saying that the mother and father's phone records were wrong. That's the level of utter bullshit people have to stoop to in this particular case. Now, just read what this woman has been through. Could you imagine creating a podcast and saying, well, the phone records were out by an hour. The phone records, the phone records weren't right. Can you imagine that? It's just, I don't know. I really don't get it. I don't get it at all. But I can tell you categorically, After doing my own research, after speaking to a good friend of mine who was high up in Vodafone back in the late 90s, the telephone records that the mother and father of Child E had, those telephone records are done in local time. So the time that is reflected on those bills is 100% accurate. And think about this, yeah? You've got Benjamin Myers KC, right? And Nicholas Johnson, two of the most experienced barristers in this country. Do you not think that if there was an error or some kind of discrepancy in the telephone records, that these two individuals wouldn't have noticed that? It's crazy. It's more, I'm not going to get into it, but let me just tell you this. The timing on those records, on that billing data, is in local time, and it is 100% accurate. What you make of this case after that is up to you, but I can tell you 100% that that is factual information. And anyone who is telling you something else is a little lying bullshitter. Right, okay, let's continue. It's not even about lying. I mean, it's just about, I mean, like I say, I've heard other people saying, well, I haven't heard it, but I've been told that other people have been saying, oh, yeah, you know, the phone bills are in GMT or there were like an hour's difference. And that's why there was this discrepancy. But you'll notice as we go further on that the mother remembered what time this was without the phone bill. And she went back and checked her phone bill or got a paper copy of that phone bill to make sure that she had it right in her head. And she did, because she knew the time and it was reflected on the bill. So, and as I say, telephone bills, mobile phone bills are done in local time. All you would need to do to make sure that this was, you know, done correctly and there was no errors is look at the mother's phone record and then look at the B end of the call, which is the father's. If the numbers and the times match up, there's no issue, is there? It's done at that time. So, yeah, let's not get into it. Let's not give these people any airtime. Let's carry on with what we're doing here. So, and again, thank you so much to Lucy Blue, Michelle, Silver Fox, Lindsay H, Rachel Barker, and Alora Mack for your support. Greatly appreciated. Okay. So again, we're talking about the phone calls. So the mother says 5800, Nicholas Johnson. 5800 was the father of child E and F's number at the time. She replies, yes. And hang on a minute, I just need to remove this. There we go. Okay. Just have a sip of my drink, 2 seconds. There we go. Right. So 5800 was the father of child E and F's number at the time. She replies, yes. Did you speak to your husband about your concerns? She replies, I did. Having spoken to him, did you remain on the postnatal ward? She replies, yes. When did you next return to the neonatal ward? She replies, it was later on that evening. It would have been, it may be fairer to you if you just tell us in summary form what was going on the next time you went to the neonatal ward. What was happening in the neonatal ward? She replies, I was sat in the corridor, actually inside the neonatal unit, and I was watching a team of people around Child E's incubator working on him. Nicholas Johnson. So this was Child E being resuscitated the next time you went, okay? We have a time for that, all right? So I won't ask you about that. But I just want to make sure we filled in the time between you going back to the postnatal ward and you going down when Child E was being resuscitated. She replies, okay. So just trying to put yourself back into that time for us, please, the mother of Child E and F. In that intervening time, what were you doing? She replies, panicking. I had conversations with the midwife who had come to administer medication to me. A lot of that time was panicking and waiting because I was following the rules. I was told that if there was a problem, I'd be told to go. Who had told you what the rules were so far as this period of time was concerned? She replies, well, the rules were go back upstairs and if there's a problem, I'll call you. And that was what Lucy Letby on the neonatal unit. And that was Lucy Letby on the neonatal unit. And I followed those rules. Yes. Can you remember how you were called back to the unit? Who was responsible for calling you back? How did you get a message? She replies, the midwife came and spoke to me and asked me to call my husband, and she spoke to him on the phone. Okay. Can we see that call on this telephone record, the mother of child E and F? She replies, yes. What time is it shown on? What time is it shown as on the telephone record? She replies, 22:52. So that's number 2. Is that right? She replies, yes. You have written, midwife rung the father of child E and F to tell him to come into the hospital after neonatal rung the maternity ward. She replies, yes. Is that right? She replies, yes. Is there any reason why it was the midwife who spoke to the father of child E and F rather than you speaking to the father? She replies, I have no idea. I'm presuming because I was very upset and I knew there was something wrong and I'd known from leaving him, but I left. Okay, sorry. No, don't be sorry. It's quite all right. I don't want to make things unnecessarily difficult for you, all right? Because there are many doctors and medical professionals who can give us the details about what happened with child E when he was being resuscitated. But does it come to this, that you were taken back down to the neonatal unit later on? She replies, yes. To use your words, or an approximation of your words, the medical team were working on child E. Yes. And ultimately, their best efforts were unsuccessful. Yes. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that with you because others are in a less sensitive position than you to explain what happened there. But I just want to deal with what happened afterwards, please, once child E had passed away. Okay. Did you have any contact with Lucy Letby at that stage? She replies, yes. Can you tell us what happened in relation to that contact with Lucy Letby after the death of child E? She replies, I was asked if I would like to bathe. I was asked if I would like to bath child E. And at that moment, I didn't feel like I was able to. I was just broken. I couldn't. So Lucy Letby bathed him in front of me in the neonatal unit. After he was bathed, he was placed in a white gown. And I just remember being thankful because we had no clothes for him because he was so little. And he was given back to us. And then we went in his incubator. And he was given back to us and then went in his incubator. And that's where he stayed. Did one of the doctors have a conversation with you and your husband about the issue of a post-mortem examination of child E? She replies, yes, we were asked about a post-mortem. And I think my husband asked some questions. And I think those questions were all along the lines of, what will the post-mortem tell us? And she told us it wouldn't tell us very much. And it wouldn't be able to tell us any more than what she was telling us of how he died. She spoke about it would delay. It would delay our transfer back home. It would mean if we got transferred back home, we would be leaving child E. And we just wanted to take him home. Did there come a stage when you were given anything by Lucy Letby? Did there come a stage when you were given anything by Lucy Letby? She replies, yes. We were given a memory box, which totally surprised me because at that moment, I hadn't even thought, well, it was all his things, footprints. There was a little memory box, a memory card with pictures on, a lock of his hair, a candle, a teddy. And I just so overcome with emotion that this had been provided for me because I had no other memories apart from that. Did you ever you have told us about a teddy for child E. Did you ever get another teddy? She replies, yes, we got a matching one for child F. Actually, those teddies were swapped over. So child E got child F's teddy and child F got child E's teddy. Nicholas Johnson. In relation to child F and his teddy, did you ever get anything else from Lucy Letby? She replies, there was a picture, not long. I think it was a few days after. I'm struggling to recall the actual date. Don't worry about the precise date, but approximately was this whilst child F was still in the Countess of Chester Hospital? She replies, child F was in the Countess of Chester Hospital, and we had been to visit child E at the Chapel of Rest. Until his funeral, we made the journey home every day until it was his funeral. And when we come back one day, there was a picture. She had presented me with a picture of child F holding we called it his child E bear. And she said, I got this picture. He rolled over and hugged his child E bear, and I thought it was so amazing, so I took a picture for you. So she was suggesting to you that child F had rolled over and cuddled the bear. She replies, yes. Did there come a time when when you sent a card to the staff on the neonatal unit? She replies, yes. Was that done through one of the internet companies where you can, in effect, build your own card? She replies, yes. And I think Moonpig is one. Yes. I'm sure other card services are available. Is it that sort of a card that we're talking about? She replies, yes. Did that card on its front have a picture of your boys? She says, just child F. Yes. And within it, did it express you and your husband, the father of child E and F, and child F's thanks to the staff on the neonatal unit? Yes. I want to ask you one other point, please, the mother of child E and F, on the question of your son, child F. Has he ever had any? How old is he now? She replies, 7. Has he ever had any unusual bleeding issues in the 7 years that you've had him? She replies, no. Thank you, the mother of child E and F. My lord, those are all the questions that I have at this stage. Right, so we'll have a little break here and then we'll have a look at the cross-examination by Benjamin Myers. Okay, so let's change this up here. Actually, I can keep that on there. That's fine. Right, okay. Vala Hawks, thank you for presenting us with the truth and the facts of this case. Thank you very much for the $11.99 super chat, I believe that was. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you very much for your support, as always. It's always greatly appreciated. Right, okay, let's just catch up here with some of the chat. Bear with me a second. Oh my God, Turbo Gig Woof. The old timer, welcome to you. Good to see you're still about, my good man. Hope you're doing well yourself. We are going to be doing an Essex Boys stream at some point, probably one of the evenings next week. So I'll put out a post regarding that so that you can obviously attend, because I'm sure that's something that you'd like to see. But as I say, we'll probably do that sometime next week. Right, let's make sure I haven't missed anything here. Right, okay. Okay, right, so now we're going to take a look at the mother's cross-examination, which was conducted by Lucy Letby's defence barrister, Benjamin Myers, KC. Let's have a quick sip of the old green tea, and we shall begin. So, cross-examination by Mr. Myers. The mother of child E and F, if at any point you need to stop, as his lordship says, you must say so. Can I say before I ask my questions, everybody will understand what an awful experience you and your husband have had. I have to ask you questions about it, but I really want to emphasize, nothing I say is meant to be insensitive. I'll be as quick as I can be. I make it plain that whatever I'm asking and whatever happened, nobody suggests that you haven't done everything you could do. You said you'd left him and whatever, but you did all that you could do. So nothing I say is meant to suggest anything other than that, all right? There will be some things that I ask you that you may disagree with, and if that happens, could I ask you to say that you disagree or you don't accept what I say, and then I can put those things to you, and you can make that plain, and then we can move on to the next thing. She replies, okay. Is that all right? Yes. All right, just for a little background for us. Was this, so we can follow, your first babies? This was the first time you've been in hospital as a new mum? She replies, yes. I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up if you could, please. So, had you spent much time, I don't want to ask any personal details, but had you spent much time in hospitals before this in any capacity with babies? Anything like that? She replies, no. When you came to help the police with this, the first statement you made was in July 2017. You made a few other ones afterwards, but July 2017. Did you make some notes shortly after that, just to help your memory? She replies, yes. so you'd be able to tell the police? Yes. Were those notes also notes that you made in July 2017 or in 2017? She replies, yes. Were those notes also notes that you made? Yeah, that was right. Again, so you were thinking back to things that had happened back in June and August 2015. Yes. And then Mr. Goss jumps in and says, end of July and August, Mr. Myers. Yes. Mr. Goss, I think you misspoke. You said June and August. Mr. Myers, I apologize. Mr. Goss, the end of July and beginning of August. So almost exactly 2 years. Mr. Myers, yes. Going to go through some of the details and some of the timings. I'll ask you generally now. You can either agree or disagree. But do you think it's possible that any of the timings that you've got could not be accurate? Could be not accurate, the timings that you have given us? She replies, in respect of what timings? Mr. Myers, when you say, for instance, that you went down at 9 o'clock or about 9 o'clock, is that a timing you're quite clear about? She replies, yes. Or is that approximate? She replies, yes. We'll go through it and have a look. What happened that night? Perhaps we can agree about this. Must have been very intense and very upsetting. She replies, yes. And so what I'd like to look at is whether there's any areas where any of the detail that you've got could at all be mixed with any other detail or any other timing as we go along. So that's what I'm looking at. Okay. You will tell me if you disagree. Okay. So that you know where I'm coming from with the questions and so that everybody knows, so you know what lies behind them, can I suggest to you that there were 3 times you went down that evening? I'm going to suggest it and then we'll go over it and you tell me, is this right or wrong? Is that okay? Yes. I'm doing so so that you know where I'm coming from, because I don't want it to suddenly come as a surprise what I'm suggesting. I'm going to suggest to you that you'd gone down round about 8 o'clock, which is the handover time on the unit, right? And you were doing cares, certainly with child E, round about then. Let me suggest this, and we'll go over it. Then I'm going to suggest that actually it's nearer to 10 o'clock than 9 o'clock that you went down with the breast milk. And then you went back again when child E was being resuscitated, round about 11 o'clock. So I know you have said you went down at 9, and then you went back later. And what I'm asking you to consider is whether you'd gone down at 8, and then 10, and then later. She replies, no, that's not the case. You disagree with that? Absolutely. I'm suggesting that you disagree with it. She replies, yes, okay. I'll come back to some more detail. No, sorry, let me just get this right. I'm suggesting that you disagree with it. Yes, okay. I'll come back to some more detail, but I'm going to go through the things now that you've been talking about. Okay. Let's just go through what you describe when you say you went down at 9 o'clock. I'm going to ask you about that next. You told us that there were 2 things about child E at that time, or 2 in particular. One was how upset he was. That's one of them, isn't it? And the other was that there was blood coming out of his mouth. Is that right? Witness nods. You're nodding. It's tempting to nod. I'm sorry. Yes. About the upset, first of all, let me ask you about the crying. When you went down, the mother of child E and F, to the unit that evening, there were other staff, other nurses in the unit, weren't there? She replies, I would imagine so, but I didn't come into contact with anybody. You've described it as very loud, and you said horrendous screaming and crying. She replies, yes. 2 seconds. Mr. Myers, on your account, at no time did any other nurse come into the nursery, did she or he? She replies, no, not that I'm aware of. I'm not going to disagree that child E was upset when you went down. What I'm looking at is just how upset he was, right? And what I'm going to suggest to you is that he wasn't as upset to the degree that you describe. It wasn't as bad as that because you said it was horrendous. It was horrendous. I'm respectfully disagreeing and saying he was upset. But it wasn't as horrendous as you're saying. In your mind, you say it was horrendous. Okay. I'm going to ask you a little bit about the blood. I'll be as quick as I can with this. You said to start with that there was blood coming out of his mouth, and you drew a picture, didn't you? Did the blood go anywhere else apart from on his chin? She replies, it was on his... a little bit. a little bit on the lip and underneath. Just so we can be quite clear, you're not describing something where there is blood coming out and it's going onto his clothes or over the bedding or anything like that. She replies, no. It's that you could see certainly what looked like blood. You would say it was blood, but you could see it round about his chin in that area like we saw on that picture. She replies, yes. You say on clothes, perhaps we could have some evidence of what clothing. Then she says, no. She said he wasn't wearing any clothing. Mr. Myers, but on your clothes, for instance, because you contained him, didn't you? She replies, I had my hand on the top of his head and on his stomach. But to be quite clear, and this is the point I'm asking about, and I think you agree, you're not describing it coming out and going over things like that, no. Or on the bedding or anything like that. She replies, no. One of the descriptions that you gave to the police later, the mother of child E and F, was this, and just see if you agree. You said, it was around his bottom chin and the bottom lip, like on the picture you've drawn. It wasn't thick. It's difficult to explain what it was like. It was like a dribble pattern on his skin. It wasn't completely fresh. Does that sort of describe what it was you saw? She replies, yes. All right. I know you said it's blood, and that's what you say you saw. I'll ask in case it makes any difference. Is it possible that what you saw was some sort of dark liquid with flecks of blood in it around his chin? She replies, it was blood. That's right, you say it was blood. All right. I'm suggesting if you did see anything like that, at that time, it might have been what's called a dark aspirate with flecks of material in it, but you say it was blood. She replies, it was blood. All right. And it struck you as not completely fresh? She replies, no. Again, just going through some of the details that you have given to us, the mother of child E and F, you mentioned that after you'd been downstairs, you went upstairs and you saw, did you see, was it the midwife? She replies, a midwife come in. Is that the midwife who had been looking after you generally? She replies, that evening, yes. There was different midwives on. There was a lot of different midwives. Mr. Myers, had you seen this one before? She replies, no. It was the first time I'd come into contact with this one. Did you speak to her about what had happened? She replies, yes, I was distraught. I'm not going to suggest you weren't anxious and you weren't upset. I am going to suggest, and you can disagree with it if you want to, the mother of child E and F, but actually at this time you were worried. But it was much later in the evening that you became distraught. Yes, okay. Do you agree or disagree with that? She replies, I disagree. You say you were distraught here. Yes, I knew there was something very wrong. All right, I'm just showing where the differences are, but trying to get on with it as quickly so we don't spend too long with it. Was the midwife called Susan? She replies, yes, Susan Brooks. I don't know her last name. We'll see sooner or later, I imagine, a note from Susan Brooks, who describes how she had been told by you that it must be child E had deteriorated slightly. Okay. This is the note. We'll come to the note later in the evidence. Okay. I'm going to suggest that at that point, we have that because you weren't. Let me just read this again. I'm going to suggest that at that point, we have that because. I'm going to suggest that at that point, we have that because you weren't saying at that point that something was very wrong. You might have said you were anxious, but you weren't actually saying anything was very wrong. I said that to my husband on the phone. I told him there was something very wrong. Right. I'm going to suggest you didn't say that. I'm going to suggest you didn't say that to the midwife, even though you were talking with her, did you? Just read that bit again. 2 seconds, guys. Little sip of the old tea. Mr. Myers, right. I'm going to suggest that you didn't say that to the midwife, even though you were talking with her, did you? She replies, I can't remember that full conversation, but I was very upset. Right, all right. I've explained where I'm coming from, and you're making it clear where you come from, so I'll move on with the next detail. With your husband, we know there was a phone call at 21:11. We've seen that on the records. Then there was a later call, wasn't there, at about 22:42. Yes. Again, not disputing you were anxious about things that were taking place at the very least. You say you were more than anxious. You say you were very worried. Yes. not going to dispute that you mentioned that you had seen what you thought was blood on child E. I'm not disputing that. But did you speak to your husband? When you spoke to him later at 22:52, did you tell him then as well, or at all, that there was a lot of blood coming from child E at that time? She replies, I don't remember a conversation with the father of child E and F at that point. It was Sue, the nurse, who was having a conversation with the father of child E and F. So what she's saying there is that the midwife is the person who spoke to her husband. That's basically what she's saying. I don't remember a conversation with the father at that point. It was Sue, the nurse, who was having a conversation with the father of child E and F. You checked your phone records sometime after the night that this all happened, didn't you? She replies, yes. There was an issue with the hospital, wasn't there, about timings? She replies, yes. Incidentally, and you'd wanted just to have a look at the timings, hadn't you? Yes. Again, I'm just asking, I give you the opportunity to respond to this, whether actually at the phone call at 9:11, whilst you were anxious, you weren't as worried as you were later on, when you'd been called down for the resuscitation. Is it possible that looking back, you've kind of transferred some of the very big worry you had later to that phone call at 9:11? Is that possible, do you think? She replies, no, it's not possible. I suggest it is, but you disagree with me about that. She replies, yes, I disagree. That's why I'm doing it this way, so we can make it quite clear, all right? Can I go through then some suggestions I'm going to make to you about what happened? Exactly the same, exactly the same. You're absolutely free to agree or disagree as you like, the mother of child E and F. She replies, okay. I've asked whether you went down to do some cares at 8 o'clock, and you say that, no, you didn't, all right? I've suggested to you that the time you did go down with the breast milk is later than 9. It might even be as late as 10, but you disagree with that. She replies, I disagree. All right, I suggest to you that there was no time that Miss Letby said the tube was irritating child E. That isn't something that she said. She replies, I disagree. Okay, can I ask you something else, if you could help me with this? At the time you were down there, the time that you're saying is 9 o'clock or just after, around that time, do you recall one of the doctors being present, a gentleman, David Harkness? She replies, I don't. Right. I don't want you to be at any disadvantage with this. When you say you don't, do you mean you don't and he wasn't there? Or you don't and he might be there, but you just cannot remember that detail? She replies, I didn't see anybody else on that occasion when I went down to the unit. I understand what you have said. Let me just ask a little more detail about that, whether this helps. Do you recall a conversation where you were there with Miss Letby and a male doctor and talking about some medication that would be given to child E? This is before you went down at the time of resuscitation. This is the earlier one. Do you recall that? She replies, no. The only person in that room was Lucy Letby. There was only me and her there. And that's the only person you say you saw. She replies, that's the only person I had a conversation with. So if I'm suggesting there was a doctor who was around at that time, that's something you actually disagree with. She replies, I disagree with that. That's why I wanted to be clear. I didn't want to leave it that you might be saying that you couldn't remember, in fairness to you, the mother of child E and F. I didn't want to leave it that you might be saying that you couldn't remember, in fairness. She replies, okay, I disagree. Benjamin Myers, all right. I'm suggesting there was, okay, on behalf of Miss Letby. So he's suggesting that there was a doctor there. I'm suggesting there was on behalf of Miss Letby. Mr. Justice Goss, it was a conversation in which you were involved and Lucy Letby and Dr. Harkness. That's what is being suggested about some medication for child E. She replies, I disagree with that. I wanted to be quite clear about that, says Mr. Myers. Mr. Goss, well, exactly. You're saying you can't remember anything like that happening. It didn't happen. She replies, no. I was actually told that the registrar would be down and she had made that call. But at no time do you say the registrar did actually put in an appearance at that point. She replies, not at all. So we disagree about that bit. She replies, I disagree. Yes. Moving forwards now. And in fact, after what happened at 11 o'clock, you went downstairs, didn't you, at the time that they were trying to give help to child E when he was very ill. Is that correct? She replies, yes. not going to ask you any more details at all, but can I just ask you this, the mother of child E and F? Could you see what was happening in the room at that time? She replies, I could see people stood around the incubator. I could see through a window. And could you see blood then? Do you mind me asking? She replies, there was people stood round him. I couldn't see anything. Are you aware, you may not be, but I'll just ask, that they have a set procedure on that unit for how nurses are meant to help families when a bereavement has taken place? Are you aware of that now? She replies, I don't know about the specific hospital, but I do know that other hospitals do have procedures in place. All right. Are you aware now that sometimes they have procedures like taking handprints or footprints and making memory boxes? Is that something you now know? She replies, I know now, yes. And Miss Letby took care of Childy after he died, didn't she? She replies, yes. And you have described some of the things that she did, and she was the nurse who had been with Childy beforehand. So, as far as you understand, is that correct, the mother of child E and F? She nods. We've nearly finished, just one final area. It's always helpful just to pause. This is something different. This is about what you were told, about what you told us about the post-mortem, the discussion about the post-mortem. So the jury can follow who it was with, because you talked about she. There was a female doctor, wasn't there, who you had the discussion with? She replies, yes. In fact, we're going to find the doctor's name is Dr. C. You may or may not remember. She replies, not at all. But that's the doctor. When you and your husband eventually decided that you wouldn't have a post-mortem, was that largely because she had explained in a way why there was little point in having a post-mortem? She replies, yes. So in a way, she had directed you in that direction, hadn't she? Swayed you? She replies, I felt so, yes. Mr. Myers, all right, the mother of child E and F, thank you for answering my questions. Okay, let's have a quick break. Okay. Oh dear. Okay, hopefully everyone is behaving in the chat and you're all being civil to each other. Hopefully, it looks okay from the stuff that I'm reading. Like I've always said in previous streams, I don't mind any sort of discussion regarding this case, whether you believe Lucy's innocent or guilty, as long as people respect each other. There's no sort of disrespect or bullying or horrible, nasty behaviour. Otherwise, you're just going to get booted out, going to get kicked out and banned. Other than that, you can discuss what you like. Right, let's have a look. All right. Sit and Spin says they're not behaving. Yeah, it's a difficult one, JC, isn't it? I mean, we're near the end now. We've only got about another, what have we got? We've got 1 page here, 2 pages, and then the father's evidence is 4 pages, I think. So we haven't got much more to go, but I think it's important this is put out there in terms of what happened factually, the evidence that they gave factually in court. It's really important because this sort of stuff can counteract any sort of misinformation or lies which are then spun to be something that it's not. So if you have the full facts of what was said, you know, whatever you make of this is up to you, but you can't argue that this was actually said in court. Whoever you believe in this instance is completely, as I say, up to you. But this is a factual recreation, I guess you would say, of what was said inside the courtroom. So how bloody dare you, Rachel? No, I'm not. Only occasionally. And usually when I press the mute button, but let's have a look. Thank you for helping someone in another part of the world to understand better. Thank you very much, Amanda. Much appreciated. Yeah, I agree, Mish. Yeah, like I said yesterday when I covered it for the live stream, a lot of people during that stream of saying, this should be put out there, really. This is a really important statement, or not a statement, but a really important piece of information. So yeah, and as I didn't cover the father's evidence last night, I thought, well, I might as well just do it again, this evening, get the mother's and the father's covered. We've got that out of the way then. And from there, obviously, we can move on to the next case tomorrow night, which will be the case of the twin child F. Thank you, Amanda. Much appreciated. Right. Beautifully fractured. Loves a bit of the old bubble gum. Well, I used to like this stuff, right, quickly before we get into the final part of this. So I used to have this stuff called Heisenberg, which is made by Vampire Vape. But then I found an alternative, which I actually prefer, which is called H Blue. But I don't know what you would describe it as in terms of flavor. But we better not talk too much about the older the vape juice. Right. Let's finish this off. And as always, thank you all for watching this evening. We've got about 5 pages left, I believe. Okay. Right. So now we've got re-examination by Mr. Johnson. So Nicholas Johnson, just 2 clarification issues, the mother of child E and F, okay? You described the blood that you saw on child E's, around child E's mouth, as being not completely fresh. I think were your words. What was it about its appearance that drove you to that conclusion? She replies, it was stained and it wasn't dripping, it was smudged. It's really hard to explain, isn't it? It didn't look completely dry, but it didn't look like it was. Was there anything about the colour that it was darker? Darker. It wasn't, yeah. I think most people know that fresh blood is the colour of his lordship's gown. She replies, yes, it wasn't like that. Dark blood is much darker colour. Where was it on the spectrum as you remember? She replies, darker, but it was, like I said, it wasn't, it's really hard to explain. It was darker. It wasn't bright red. It was, yeah, it was darker than that. I don't know how else to explain it. Nicholas Johnson, no, it's all right. It was all there, indicating. Mr. Justice Goss, for the benefit of the record, you're again indicating below the bottom lip to the top of the chin area. She replies, yes. As part of the questioning about the timing of the phone call, it was suggested to you that there had been an incident over timing. Do you remember? She replies, yes. What was the incident over timing? Now, keep this in mind when I read this next part out. The incident over timing was a report had come from the Countess of Chester, and the time difference was it seemed to be out by an hour of my recollection of things. So that tells you, doesn't it, that she had in her mind, before she even had her phone records or whatever, she had in her own mind what time this stuff took place, because she saw a record of something else and instantly thought, no, that's not right. That's not right. So that's what led her to then getting the phone records. The incident over timing was a report had come from the Countess of Chester, and the time was different. The time difference was it seemed to be out by an hour of my recollection of things. My recollection of things, I know what time it was, and in that moment I thought, I know that I literally had come back upstairs because I didn't take my phone with me, and I spoke to my husband. I know that I did that. That's when I contacted the phone company to get things right in my mind as well, because I knew, and I couldn't understand why the hospital would be so far out with that. Nicholas Johnson. So what? It was being suggested to you that something had happened an hour later than you remembered it happening. She replies, yes, and I knew that wasn't the case. By reference to the telephone call. But I knew it in my mind, and then I got some evidence for myself. As I just said, Nicholas Johnson. Okay, does your lordship have any questions? Mr. Justice Goss, I don't. Thank you very much. That completes your evidence. You're free to go. We're going to have our break now, and the next witness is your husband. Right, so we'll bring that up in 2 seconds. Right. Okay. Right, let's make sure I don't miss anything out there. Right, 2 seconds, guys. Okay. Right, okie dokie. Let's just scroll back through, make sure I haven't missed anything. And again, thank you so much to my moderators this evening, Terry Stamper and also Lenny Russell. Thank you so much for keeping an eye on things. It's greatly appreciated, as always. Right, so now let's get this finished. As I say, tomorrow we're going to be moving on to the twin, which is child F. So that stream will be the same time as this one, 8 p.m. tomorrow night. It may actually be a little bit earlier. I might do tomorrow's at 6 o'clock, but I will let you know. The time of tomorrow's stream will be up by about 12 or 1 o'clock. So by about 12 or 1 p.m. tomorrow, you'll be able to see what time the live stream is later that evening. But I would imagine I may well do it at 6 o'clock, but I'll wait and see. I'll let you know. Okie dokie. Right. Let's get finished, shall we? And again, thank you so much to those of you who have helped support the stream this evening, including Alora Mack, Rachel Barker, Lindsay H, Silver Fox, Michelle, Lucy Blue, and Vala Hawks. Now, let's finish these final 4 pages. Okay. So this is the father of child E and F. Examination in chief by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, would you like to take a seat? You have a nice loud voice and you can keep it up, please. If you can keep it up, please. And tell the jury your full name. My full name is the father of child E and F, so that's redacted. The father of child E and F. Are you married to the mother of child E and F? He replies, correct. And were your twin boys, child E and child F, born on Wednesday the 29th of July 2015? He replies, yes. Given the issues in the case, the father of child E and F, I'm only going to ask you about one thing, and that is a telephone call that you received from your wife or telephone calls. But just to set the scene for that, what was your perception of the progress of your twin boys between their birth on the 29th of July and child E's tragic death on the night of the 3rd to the 4th of August? He replies, my perception before the phone call. Nicholas Johnson, before the phone call, yes. I was very happy. There didn't seem to be any issues. Yes, my perception of their health was good. This may sound like a ridiculous question, but do you remember the 3rd of August 2015, the events of that day? He replies, I remember looking at the statement I've submitted, and that's accurate, the bits that I can remember. Okay, did there come a stage on the 3rd of August when you had gone home? He replies, yes. And that evening, did you receive a telephone call from your wife? He replies, yes. Can you remember what time the call was? Looking at my statement, and we corroborated it with the phone records, I want to say 2150, but I would need that in front of me too. All right, let's put up the phone records if we can, please, again. Is your number the one ending 5800? He replies, that's correct, yes. What we have that day, starting at the top, are a couple of calls made earlier in the day. Can you see right at the top, 8:16, for example? He replies, yes, I can see that, yes. We can see one at 18:31, 3 minutes and 34 seconds, yes. We can see a further one at 19:36, yes. 14 minutes and 1 second. And we see then a pair of calls at 21:11 and 22:52, all right? Yes. Do you remember either or both of the calls? He replies, I remember both calls. The first of those two calls was my wife calling me. She was upset, very worried about child E because she had seen bleeding from his mouth. Then I remember the conversation was, well, what have the doctors and nurses said? And she said, they said there's nothing to worry about. Go back up. I said to the mother of child E and F, that's what they've said. I'm sure you're panicking over nothing because they know what they're doing. Then the second phone call was, sorry, no, you saw me coming. That was the question I was about to ask you. The second phone call was the mother of child E and F and the midwife who was looking after her because the mother of child E and F was still on the ward. She'd had a C-section and the midwife was telling me, don't panic, but you need to get here right away. Child E's not doing very well. Don't drive, get somebody to drive you. That was the second phone call. Mr. Johnson, thank you, the father of child E and F. Would you wait there? There may be some more questions for you. So, Mr. Myers, only really one, the father of child E and F. It won't take very long. You told us about the two calls, 2111 and 2252. He replies, yes. Might it be possible that the reference to bleeding was at 2252 rather than 2111, or are you clear? He replies, absolutely not. All right. Yes, absolutely not. That's all I wanted to check. Thank you. Does your lordship have any questions? Mr. Goss. No, I don't. That was short, your evidence. Just by way of explanation, because your wife has given evidence, that ground didn't need to be gone over again. He replies, I understand. Although you obviously said a lot more in your statement about these events, that's all that you needed to be asked about. He replies, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed for coming and giving your evidence. That's it. You're free to go or stay exactly as you wish. All right? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The witness withdrew. Right, guys. So that concludes the parents' evidence concerning the case of baby E. Oh, yeah, don't forget to hit that like button if you can. That would be much appreciated. I'll do that anyway, Michelle. I can't. I'm not the greatest reader, despite a lot of my stuff literally being, me narrating things. You can see why it takes me so long, because I literally can't string two sentences together half the time. But I do my best. I try my best. I try my best. I do what I can. But thank you very much for that compliment. Much appreciated. Thank you, Jenny. That's made my evening, that has. Thank you. Yeah, it's difficult. It's such a I mean, like, when I covered it last night, I thought, do I put this out there? But is it? But the thing is, it's a factual piece, and it's an important piece of the trial. And when you've got people who are creating podcasts and saying, oh, no, that timing was wrong because the phone bill had the wrong time on it. I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. What is acceptable, however, is paying for the transcripts of this case and allowing other people to see exactly what transpired during Lucy Letby's trial. So that's what I've done. Right, yes, I'm good. The good thing is, though, my headache has completely gone. There we go. There we go. Right, okay. That's very kind of you, Sit and Spin. Thank you very much. Like I say, my opinion on her innocence or guilt is neither here nor there. No one cares about people's opinions on stuff like this. People like to think that their opinion matters, but in reality, it really doesn't. What matters is the facts. What took place in court? What was said in court? Who said what in court? What transpired during Lucy Letby's 10-month trial? Not some pleb doing a 20 or 30-minute video saying, oh, I think you should get the... What matters is the facts. So that's what I try and do. Yes, I may have done the odd video where I've injected some of my own thoughts on Lucy Letby's innocence or guilt. Of course I have. It's my own channel and everybody is allowed an opinion. But people's opinions on this are irrelevant. They are simply irrelevant. People's opinions aren't going to change what's happened in this case. And if I can provide people with the facts, because after all, I have paid for them, after all, then that's what I'll do. Because by providing what transpired in court, people can't twist that. People can't switch that about and say that it didn't happen, or try and create, or try and suggest that certain things happened when they actually didn't. So that's the reason why I want this out there. So the facts of what actually happened inside the courtroom can be told to the public in the fullest possible detail. Right, I'm out of here. I will see you tomorrow, same time. Actually, probably not the same time. Most likely, it'll be around 6 o'clock, but I'll update you tomorrow lunchtime. Check out the channel tomorrow lunchtime, or at least sort of before 3 o'clock, I would say, 3 or 4 o'clock, and you'll know what time the stream's going to be. Most likely, it'll either be 6 or 8, but I'll put a post up tomorrow, and you'll be fully informed. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much again for joining me this evening. It's great, as I said in previous previous episodes to see the same people here each and every night, getting something factually from this stream, getting something factually from this channel. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Even those of you who believe she's innocent. Everybody's welcome here, as long as you're polite and you're kind to each other. That's all that matters. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.